Welcome, councillors, staff and gallery to the August meeting of council. We meet here in the spirit of respect, cooperation and collaboration. Collectively, we pay tribute to those who have come before us, First Nation people, as we seek to grow our understanding, connection, knowledge of their heritage and culture with respect and unity. We acknowledge the Ngadjuri, Paramank and Kaurna traditional custodians of these lands within the Barossa, and I also acknowledge European settlers whose customs and traditions have been passed down through 6 generations. The agenda's been circulated. There's no apologies. I'll move to item 2.1, which is the minutes of the previous meeting for confirmation, and they are the council meeting held on Tuesday the 16th of July 2024 at 5:30. Someone moved those minutes. Councillor De Vries and seconded Deputy Mayor Schilling. All those in favour? Carried. Item 2.21 is a final report from the government response to the review of the Emergency Management Act, and that's matters there from the previous minutes, number 5, on page 5. Item 3.3 is a notice of motion. This is a notice of motion in regard to the Lindop Courts at the Barossa Park project. Councillor Lane, this notice of motion, would you like to move the motion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Barrett.
Yes.
I didn't see your light, sorry.
Yes. Apologies, Mayor, I a bit quiet. I'd like to declare a general conflict of interest in relation to this matter. I have a granddaughter who plays for the Barossa District's netball club, and as such, I believe there is a general conflict, and my intention is to stay in the chamber, listen to what is said, and I will not be voting to remove any suggestion that I will be voting in favour of my granddaughter and with her playing for that particular side and having exclusive use of 2 netball courts. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Priest, you have your light on.
I was just going to second the motion.
Oh, okay. Yep. We'll put the motion up, and the motion is an amendment, as I understand, Councillor Lane?
Yes.
Yep. Do you wish to say anything further, or wait until I get a seconder? I'll wait. I'll get a. You'll move the motion.
Yep.
Councillor Priest, you're seconding. Okay. You can speak to it now.
So, obviously, difficult position, and Councillor Barrett's position is quite good. I didn't think of that one. Obviously, have a large affiliation with both groups. I can't wear either hat. I've got to be unbiased and make sure that I'm trying to address all needs of all stakeholders within a newly founded precinct. There is a bit of an exclusive nature attached with some of the arrangements, and I don't see why that doesn't extend to all stakeholders. And my personal feeling, and not that I've gone and lobbied, and I have not made any contact with any EM. I have not pushed this thing as a Rick Lane thing. I push this as, if you think that something is not quite right, the voting will come. I don't think that netball shouldn't have an identity in a sporting precinct of a regional nature like that. And I'm quite happy to explore Lindop Tennis Club's wish for 8 courts, but it won't be off of the back of the current time frame.
Councillor Priest.
Yes, I echo everything that Councillor Lane has said, that we have to rectify the mistake we made in February. We are a council that should represent all of the Barossa Council. This is going to be a precinct that's benefiting all of the stakeholders at that precinct, and I think that once it's finished and completed, they will see the benefits of what has happened and what we're doing there. And I do note that later on in 12 months' time, we will revisit this site to see what we can do for future courts.
Thank you, Your Worship. When we began this journey, and I'm speaking because I moved the original motion and I will be supporting Councillor Lane's amendment. When we began this journey, we were contacted, many of us councillors, by the tennis club and told that they would like to retain the status quo, but obviously if we could improve what they've got, that would be obviously desirable. At the time, the council agreed to do that, and I believe we've honoured that, except that during this particular motion, we decided to go one step further. We thought we could actually improve even on that, and we thought that eight courts for the use of tennis would be to the advantage. However, in doing so, I guess I was unaware of the negatives that it would have on netball, and I believe that we are all politicians, and when a politician makes an error, I think you shouldn't compound that by, once you learn that you've made a mistake, that you need to sort of think about maybe correcting it, and that's what I believe we're doing here. Now, I know that that will create a great deal of upset for those people within tennis who believed that they were going to be getting 8 courts for the exclusive use. I believe there are ways that we can maybe alleviate that into the future. I think that we've just all been, for the benefit of the gallery, we've actually been to the site today, and it is magnificent, and you're going to be very, very excited when you actually see what you're going to be getting. And you will be playing on some of the best facilities in the state, no question about it. I believe that there are ways that we can improve tennis's situation going forward. I like Councillor Priest has mentioned that after we've actually see the new facility open, after a 12-month or so period of run-in where we can actually see the demands, this council, I'm sure, will then revisit, as we always do, these things and say maybe there's an opportunity in the future. Likewise, many of the club play in Williamstown. There is the capacity for perhaps courts to be available there as well. So I think that while I'm I guess sorry that we gave the commitment to 8 courts and now we're going back and saying it's 6. I still believe that the Lyndoch Tennis Club is actually going to get a much better facility than they would have had otherwise. I believe that we're also honouring the original deal that we did with netball, which I think is important. And this is the best option that I think we can go with.
Just briefly wanted to acknowledge the gallery this evening and really just take a moment to reassure the gallery and the public generally that this is necessarily a situation where there are diametrically opposed views about what the outcome should be. And so when there is an outcome, necessarily there is going to be disappointed parties. And I really just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that everyone has engaged in this conversation really respectfully. I've spoken to both sides of the conversation and just really reassure everyone that's been involved that everyone around this chamber has really taken the time to engage with the issue and really consider it. It's not been a flippant or not given weight and consideration, but nonetheless there will be people who are disappointed. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and really reassure you of our best intentions and really engaging in this process in good faith.
Any other comments? If not, the amendment is to accept that the 2 new courts closest to the club rooms shall be an exclusive use for the netball services, only with line marking and secondary infrastructure reflecting this single target use, and that council will review these service levels after 12 months months of full operation. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And Councillor Barrett has decided not to vote, so it's unanimous. Thank you. Page 129, the Mayor's report. 4.1, any questions that anyone may have with the Mayor's report? I just might comment on some of the great work that you can pass on to your staff. Mr Clark, I've ridden my push bikes on a lot of the unsealed roads lately, and the work that's going on and the footpaths and everything that's sort of progressing out there is of a very high standard, and it's good to see our teams back in the capital business. Well done. Any comment? Councillor Priest?
Yeah, just briefly, I'd just like to, you've got their economy flights 1353. Is that business class or economy? Because I'm flying in September and I'm paying 750. So is that correct?
Oh, I'm sure my legs were tangled around my
That just seems excessive compared to my airfare to Canberra in September is 750.
Well, I don't book the flights. I don't know.
No, unless that was just an error and it's not really that. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. It was definitely economy, Councillor. Any other further questions? Moved Councillor De Vries and seconded Councillor Hearn. All those in favour? Carried. Item 6 is the matters for information, and there is a number of matters there. If there's no action for them, they'd just be noted. Any questions? The debate report 7.1.1 on page 237 is the revocation of the Australian Citizenship Ceremony Policy. 237. Any questions? Yep, Councillor Barrett. Thank you. Moved Councillor Barrett, seconded Councillor Lane. All those in favour? Carried. 7.1.2 on page 242 is a revocation of the complaint handling process under the Code of Conduct for council members and the Code of Conduct for council members. 242. Moved Councillor De Vries, seconded Councillor Troop. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried. (7.1.3) on page 252 is the adoption of the revised 2044 Community Plan and Update. On 252. Any questions? Moved Councillor De Vries, seconded Councillor Troop. Either one wish to speak to it? All those in favour? Carried. 7.1.4 on page 570 is the review of the Economic Development Events, Tourism Services, Outcome 1, Restructure, Corporate Services and Business Innovation on page 570. Any questions? Oh. Councillor Schilling moved and seconded Councillor De Vries. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, did anyone want to debate? Did either one wish to speak to it? Sorry, I'm slipping ahead, aren't I? Anyway, I've moved and put it down, so all good. Thank you. 7.1.5 on 595 is the update of the long-term financial plan. Any questions? Moved Councillor Hearn and seconded Councillor De Vries. Either one wish to speak to it? Any other comments? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Seven point 2.1 is the event management policy on page 615. Any questions? Moved Councillor De Vries and seconded Councillor Schilling. Either one wish to speak? Any further comment? All those in favour? Carried. 7.2.2 on page 632 is the Barossa Arts Festival post-festival report on page 632. Oh, Councillor Greatwich.
I'm happy to move it, but
Okay.
I'd like to speak on it. Yeah, thank
Moved Councillor Greatridge,
Thank you.
seconded Councillor Angus. Either one wish to speak to it?
Just briefly, if I may. I just wanted to note that there was a lot of really interesting data in the report that was provided, but also just to provide some comparison about the quantum of funding that was provided, and noting specifically that the recommendation is that consideration is given to that in the future. I think that one of the recommendations in that report is really around looking at the structure and the amount of staffing that's available to the festival and to the activation, and really acknowledging the challenge of running an operation of that size with such limited human resourcing. So just to note that, particularly out of that report for future consideration.
Thank you. You wish... Oh, Councillor Angus, no, okay. Thank you. Any further comment? All those in favour? Carried. Page 691 is the annual report on the internal review of Council's decisions 2023-2024. 7.2.3. Any questions? Moved Councillor De Vries, seconded Councillor Lane. Either one wish to speak? Any further comment? All those in favour? Carried. Seven point 2.4 is a review of the risk appetite statements on page 699. Any questions? Move Councillor Hearn. Second to Councillor Schilling. Either one wish to speak? Any further comments? All those in favour? Carried. .704 is the governance structure and terms of reference of the Audit and Risk Committee. 7.2.5. Any questions? Moved Councillor De Vries and seconded Councillor Troop. Either one wish to speak? Any further comment? All those in favour? Carried. Page 779, 7.2.6 is the monthly finance report as of the 31st of July 2024. Any questions? Moved Councillor Angus and seconded Councillor Greatwich. Either one wish to speak to it? Absolutely, 1 month. Yeah, fair enough. Any further comments? All those in favour? Carried. Page 782 is the support for the 2025 Vintage Festival on item 7.2.7. Any questions? Councillor Greatwich.
I was just going to move the recommendation, Bishop.
Big pardon?
I was happy to move it, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Sorry, I didn't have a question.
Okay, move Councillor Greatwich. Councillor Priest.
I'll second the motion.
Seconded Councillor Priest. Either one wish to speak to it? Councillor Priest, you want... Okay. Any further comments? All those in favour? Carried. Page 799 is the valuation to delegations register, updates to legislation 7.2.8. Any questions? Councillor Troop and seconded Councillor Lane. Either one wish to speak? Any further comments? All those in favour? Carried. On page 808, 7.3.1, Neldner Road, request to upgrade the current level of service classification, and a report there with regard to Neldner Road. Councillor De Vries.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Move Councillor Breeze. Councillor Priest.
I'll second the motion.
Wish to speak to the motion, Councillor?
I feel that the gallery would feel like it was remiss if I didn't. So, yeah, this is the Neldner Road one, people. I've been pushing this for the last, I guess, most of this year, and I think the council sort of have been looking very sympathetically at this. So I'm hoping that tonight we actually see this one being supported, and I hope that my fellow councillors, that you do support this. I've explained in workshops before, so I won't go into a great deal of detail about it now, but I do believe that Neldner Road will alleviate traffic on the Mengi Road, Magnolia Road circuit. I think it'll improve traffic flow around the schools. We had a presentation from members of the community, as you remember, at a workshop where I was quite shocked actually at just how significant the dust was. I knew that it was bad, but I didn't. You had to see the photos to really get a full appreciation of it. And seeing a school student actually riding a push bike along there being pretty much obscured by the dust, I think was very strong evidence that there is a potential risk for safety there. I also like the fact that if we were to do this, it would then alleviate the need for people who are dropping off their kids at Faith to have to go up Magnolia Road, do a U-turn. It actually then, which is effectively causing them to cross over the road. By coming up Neldner Road, you actually create a circuit, and that can actually have effectively one flow of traffic sort of running counterclockwise for, no, that's right, counterclockwise for the primary school, and another one clockwise for through Neldner Road for, no, that one is counterclockwise, sorry, for Faith, and I think that will actually improve traffic flow as well. So I hope everybody gets behind this. I think that this road is due to be sealed.
Councillor Priest.
Yes, yeah, I do always support council spending money on roads and footpaths and parks and gardens, and I think that's our core policy. So I'll always support building of roads. We've spent enough money on sporting projects that this project now before us has been very well lobbied by the people who live there and who live in the area. So yeah, I'll fully support this road, as I always will on roads being built.
Yes, I've got a question of the Director. I noticed back in March that Nilna Road was number 170th in the list of priorities for roads to be bitumenised. Can you tell me whether any work was done on the other 169 roads to see whether they had changed in priorities? Because I see we've upped their classification. So how did the other roads were they considered in preparing this report?
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The short answer is yes. They're always they're on constant review. So every time we get customer communications and the like, we'll append that to the existing list that is ongoing. In this case here, upon review, obviously there was a justification to warrant the classification change. Do we look through every 169 roads individually? Probably not, no. But in saying that, as I said, there's constant review happening that is, you know, in terms of when we get traffic counts, which are periodically being done throughout the whole of the region. We update on the basis of the traffic counts. If there's changes to land use around it, so in this case here, one of the land use changes in the local vicinity was the rugby precinct, which changed that. So anything is always taken into account, and that list is ever evolving. Do we go through and itemise all 169 roads? No. But as I said, I think that it's an ongoing monitoring that didn't justify and warrant that.
Thank you.
Can I just also add to that, Councillor Barrett, that ultimately the council actually asked us to do the in-depth review of this particular road. So we're only covering doing the review that you've actually asked us to do.
I find myself very deeply conflicted here, and I looked for a conflict of interest that I could declare. I think the closest that I got is that I know Mrs. Haberman, and I couldn't find a connection where I could excuse myself from voting. But my question is sort of similarly following on from Councillor Barrett. My question to the Director is really whether, what I'm trying to get to the heart of is whether the reason that this has been prioritised is directly as a result of advocacy from our ratepayers and residents, which moves it outside of what would otherwise be an objective, consistent application of a decision-making framework. I know that we have processes that we go through that it determines the classification of priorities, and I'm turning my mind to, notwithstanding the evocative imagery and the advocacy that we've received, is whether that is a direct reason why this road is now being prioritised as a result of that, to the exclusion of other decision making. Sure, please, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Grovich. The answer is actually the same. You asked us to go and do a specific high-level review of that particular road. If you want us to do other roads, we will do so. So the fundamental answer remains the same, and we do review all our service levels on complaints basis, etc., etc. And there's a set of standards that actually is set within the asset plans, which is then measured against. And if it meets that condition, then we look at what particular condition that is a service level that is provided to it. If we came back and said that the road didn't meet that condition, then we wouldn't make the recommendation, because there is a mechanism within the asset management plans that we follow. And if there are other roads that people then want us to have a look at, we can do so. The reasoning as to why we did it was actually something for you to answer, because we actually just did what you asked us to do.
Thank you.
Essentially I just wanted to highlight, I think, the increase in traffic that has occurred with the new facilities. Particularly driving through on Sunday, there were trials for Barossa basketball at the Rex, and there was a rugby final on at the new precinct, and I think it just highlighted the amount of traffic potentially that is there on. That was just on a Sunday without the school students being there on a weekday. So yeah, I feel like it's a way that we can encourage people to use that road more and create more of a flow, because I think at afternoon traffic and morning traffic is chaos there for the schools as well. So I think it's probably a really beneficial thing to look at present as well.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Unlike what I suspect will be the majority of councillors here, I will be voting against this particular motion, and I consider it that I should give some reasons why I'll be voting against it. It's not because I don't want to bitumenise the road, it's because what sits behind the decisions I must make as a councillor. And the Local Government Act sets out principles that we must abide by, and that is to seek to provide services and facilities and programs that are adequate and appropriate, and to ensure equitable access to services, facilities and premises. And not only does the Local Government Act talk about that, then we start to talk about the role of the Ombudsman. And the Ombudsman talks quite specifically about the conduct of public officers, which we are as councillors. And it talks about the irregular or unauthorised use of public money. And this is unauthorised, but I highlight the word irregular. And in as much as these are the things I look at as I go through this. Social priority is at a 1 to 10 scale, and we're grading this as a medium to high level 5 based on the current use of 1.09 vehicles per hour for 22 hours a day. So for 2 hours a day, we have a blip. But for the other 22 hours a day, we get 1.09 cars per hour. And when I look at that, it is graded at a level 6, and that to me is out of kilter. This particular road is an area where there's less than 5 houses, and I find that irregular. And the other thing is the use of the road. In March 2022, there were 147 vehicles across that road over a 7-day period. Let's bring that back up. Bring it back up. Over a 7-day, 140 in March 2022, 147 vehicles. And then it declined in May 2024, 2 years later, down to 103. So we're recommending to spending $350,000 on this particular project on a declining use. And then I also use the word irregular again. When this was put to us back in a couple of years ago, the estimated cost was $600,000. It is now presented to me as $350,000. Now, I haven't seen goods and services going down at such magnitude. And this is the difficulty I'm having with this particular item. And not only that, there's been no crashes recorded or vehicular accidents recorded. And then, there's no mention of the capital upgrade costs and the no crashes is. So
I think Councillor Barrett, you sort of, what I'd like to say in response to that, Councillor Barrett, and I'll take a little bit of liberty here, as an ex-road manager, if we take that line of thought, Gummersall Road would never have been sealed. When we went off and made an argument for Gummersall Road, there was probably about 30 or 40 vehicles a day. What I'm sure our staff have looked at is the demand of the future. And we're already seeing enormous amount of congestion associated with the school and the precinct. I think you've got to take into account the demand and the opportunities that it does open up. I'll be having some conversations with the school precincts to see if we can implement voluntary, what Councillor De Vries was talking about, so that we can start to spread the load, so that the investment that council is making there adds not only road safety, but avoids the congestion, but also your numbers go up and down based on the condition of the road. And when it's full of potholes, people avoid it. When it's up to a more serviceable standard, they'll go on the road. So I commend the fact that it has come forward. Some of the old service levels were some that I put in place many years ago, and I know staff are bringing them up to date under the asset management plan. So I think you can go back and drag that old data out, but I don't think it has any relevance here. And at the end of the day, the decisions are made by the selective of the council. And yes, we do take into account the Local Government Act, but there will always be different thoughts and different opinions on where you spend your money.
can I just finish? And this is what I was
I reckon I've given you close to 5 minutes, but away you go to wrap it up.
I want to finish, and this goes back to that Section 8 of the Local Government, our principles. I look at the footpaths down the main street of Mount Pleasant, and you can go back and you can look at the Department of Infrastructure figures, and you've got 1,300 vehicles a day going down that road, and over about 11% of those are heavy transports, semis. We can't even get footpaths down the main street of Mount Pleasant, but we're going to spend $350,000 on a road with less than 5 houses, and got 1 car an hour for 22 hours a day. That's the closing thought I want members to consider when you start to vote on this one.
I beg to disagree, because there is work going on in Mount Pleasant, and there's been significant amount of work going on a regular basis in Mount Pleasant and the main street. So I think you're being well serviced.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to answer a couple of those questions, Councillor Barrett. The long-term financial plan, because we've updated it for all the changes that are in this plan, is making those forward allowances for capital management and replacement. So we've catered for that in that component. And I think your question also about the technical specification originally designed was significantly over-designed for the actual purpose of the particular road. So we have redesigned it, and certainly Mr Clark can talk if you want to know a little bit more about what the major redesigns are. But yeah, I acknowledge that, and yes, prices haven't gone down, but that is the fundamental issue. It simply is a lower spec design.
Councillor Priest, have you got a question? Or?
No, look, I always appreciate Councillor Barrett's honest opinions on everything, and I really appreciate his views on things. And I hope that this council, because we're prioritising this road, we build a bridge on Research Road. Oh, sorry.
Any further comments?
Close the debate, Your Worship.
Yeah, close the debate.
Okay, look, Councillor Barrett, I totally respect your position. A road is a road is a road, except when it's not. If this was just about 5 houses, I would 100% agree with you. That's not my motivation. The motivation is that this is about a school precinct, and this is about safety, and this is about improved traffic flow. I believe that this is a strategic road that will actually not only aid traffic, but I think it'll actually extend the life of Magnolia Road and Mengi Road as a result of the way it's being utilised. I do believe that this is a good decision, and I do believe we are following the Local Government Act.
That closes the debate. All those in favour? Those against? The motion's carried. Thank you. 7.3.2 is the Lindock Recreational Park project, the Barossa Park, and costing update. 815s. Any questions?
Sorry. Yeah, through the chair. How's that federal government grant going through the chair to the CEO? The $10 million that we're seeking.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Priest. We continue to knock on the door, perhaps is a good way to put it. We have seen it progress from being submitted to now being assessed. So our current estimate, and certainly working through the state, is we would hopefully hear something maybe in September. Fingers crossed.
Oh, sorry, I'll turn my...
Follow-up question? Yep.
Yeah, on the same issue. How positive are we about getting this $10 million grant? Have we? Someone said there in federal government that
we've been doing pretty well. I guess I'm a little bit biased. I think it's a pretty good application, but I wrote it.
Have we heard from the federal government, anybody from federal government, or whatever, saying
no,
you're in with a chance?
No, they don't. They literally don't give that sort of feedback anymore.
Thank you.
Councillor De Vries.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved Councillor De Vries. Seconded Councillor Priest. Either one wish to speak?
Very briefly, yeah. We always suck air when there's a potential for a blowout. This is simply about lifting the ceiling and in the off chance that the upper estimate of in essence, we're extending the contingency. Hopefully we won't need to go there, but if we do, it's still a very, very small percentage of the total. This is the price that we have for doing business, but I think we all agree, those of us who were down there today, that the money is being incredibly well spent, and we've got to get it done.
Councillor Priest.
Only to add that this is going to be a first-class facility. I think that's going to put Barossa on the map, Australia-wide, if not internationally. It's well spent, money well spent.
Any further comments? All those in favour? Carried. Item 7.4.1 on page 963, the Barossa Assessment Panel, commencement process to appoint independent members and adoption of terms of reference. Okay, you had your hand up first. Okay, sorry. Have you got a question, Councillor Priest, or?
Yeah, I did, but...
Oh, well, it's a question. Put your question. Yep.
I don't know whether I should ask this now, but, I mean, to me, I'd like to ask the question, has Councillor Evans or Councillor Hearn been asked or spoken to about this motion before it was presented through the chair? Did they have an opportunity to add to this, or to have a say in this?
I think, yeah. CEO.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Priest. We'd had some basic conversations, but no, not formally. We've certainly spoken, even literally walking in here. So I'm happy to say I think the best solution here is to take 1 and 2 out, and we'll continue to have that conversation about what the best structure for the panel is going forward.
Because I always think it's a benefit for us to have people on this panel. And in fact, I think that the future motion of council will be that we legislate through,
Council, I'm letting you debate it.
Oh,
now,
sorry.
so, yeah.
Okay, I can't do that now.
No. Councillor Hearn.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I had a chat to both Martin and the Mayor this afternoon and Councillor Evans, and we agree that it can be beneficial for a member of this panel or an elected member to be on that committee, but there are other ramifications that stop us from talking as a representative to
Yeah, I'm letting you debate.
their...
Put your motion.
Okay, well, I'll put the motion excluding points 1 and 2. Sorry, Mayor, I've got a councillor Creases bug.
Okay, there's a motion that we'll exclude 1 and 2, and that gives the opportunity to do and do that in the future. Yep. You're seconding?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Through the Mayor, sorry. May I please just add to the suggestion for that motion?
I need to get a seconder.
Oh, no,
With respect, Mr Mayor, the motion's not finished.
Okay.
I'm just trying to tidy it up.
Oh,
Is
okay,
that
yes, okay.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, we need some names. So,
With respect.
councillor, you got a motion there. We have to put some names in there as well before I can call for a seconder.
We'll leave them as is at the moment.
We haven't got any names as is.
Councillor Evans and Councillor...
No, just to clarify.
Who's going to be on the panel?
Who's going to be on the panel?
Oh, sorry.
To select.
There is a selection panel. I'm going to put forward whether or not you formally put me on, but I can go on in any case. So, Councillor De Vries and Councillor Angus. Yep. So what we're talking about here is that Councillor De Vries and Councillor Angus, and I'll go on it, but it's still got to come back to council to be ratified. Yep. Councillor Evans.
May I be considered to engage in a selection panel, please? Through the Mayor. I'll be...
Judging yourself.
No, I won't
No.
be judging myself. But I won't be on the panel when they're on the panel. I'll be off. I will have finished my term. Before that
Just
next
hang on a
panel.
minute. We're going across the room now. Yeah. Yeah. No,
So,
look.
yeah, I just...
What we're talking about here is a selection panel for the independent members, as I understand it, and then once the panel has vented, it's still got to come back to full council to be ratified. So you're not getting caught up in putting panel members on or anything like, other than a selection for the independent members to make up the panel.
Exercise, yeah.
And I'm inclined to agree that if anyone's got any thoughts to go on the panel, it's probably best that you... That's my personal view, but anyway, for what it's worth.
So you need someone to move and second it who's
Yep.
on the panel, and then you can debate it.
Okay, I've got a second and a move.
moved.
No, it's moved and seconded,
To
yeah.
the panel.
Now you can debate it, because I did allow you to start debating something before we even had a mover and a seconder, but we have got the names in and we're all clear on what the names and what their role is. Councillor,
Hang on. Just let's get these names in.
and Councillor Angus, yep.
No, she's not done.
Yeah, I think she can.
Okay. Now, is the mover happy with that?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
And the seconder? You wish to speak to it?
Just briefly, Mayor, it's a situation that if a lot of people don't know, that if you're a member of the DAP, you cannot talk about, and Martin will correct me on the terminology, but if there's any building structures or three-storey buildings or this or that or land allotment divisions and things, we can't talk about that at all as a member of the DAP because it could come before us, it may or may not. So that's where you have to be very, very careful. And lots of us members sitting in this room have people ringing them for advice and things. So we can't even do that. We have to hand it back to Jake and his staff if it's a planning issue and so on. So we have to be mindful of that. So there's two sections here now. We're moving it forward without 1 and 2, simply to get the process moving, which the Mayor was speaking about previously. So be very mindful of where we think we're at. If you want to be part of the panel, then Councillor De Vries had some pretty sound advice.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's very important that council does have representation on the board, and I think in future we actually should have total say over how we used to, what's happening with this board, that buildings come before council, because we know what's going on in our area, whereas people from outside the area who get put on DAP don't know what's going on in our area. State governments don't know what's going on in our area, but people in this chamber do know, because we live here and we're always engaging in people. So I think it's very important that we have people from our council on this board, and I think in the future we should be taking it totally back for council to preside over.
Yep, I like your thought, but I can't see it coming totally back. But just to clarify, by removing that, we're still running under the same terms of reference as I understand it, so we will have representatives as we sit on that panel from council. Councillor Angus.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, I agree. I don't see us being the prime movers in this decision-making area for very much longer, if in fact we are at all. But I do think it is important, I've always thought it's important that we have some input into this committee, because without some skin in the game, and look, I'm probably hanging on to this as a matter of tradition, because that's how I came through the ranks with council making all these planning decisions. The thought of a regional planning committee meeting in Karoonda or Port Lincoln or Ceduna or Whyalla deciding what happens in our main streets kind of fills me with dread. But then the current system is not suiting us that well either. But I do think representative from this chamber, while we still can, we must.
Yes.
I just wanted to question broadly the urgency in making such what seems like, on the face of it, quite a significant change. I understand that there is a time period that we're up against in terms of some aspects of the composition. So I'm just not certain why what seems like quite a dramatic change has been proposed on this time frame. And then I have a follow-up question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yep. It was fairly simple. It was just the opportunity, because we had to bring a report anyhow. Yeah. It's neither here or there. We'll take it to a workshop and have conversations. There's very different viewpoints about how development is assessed going forward. But we're not wedded to it one way or the other. So that was what I asked the director to do. Bring it forward. Let's have a conversation about it.
So my follow-up question is, because I'm not comfortable with just endorsing the revised terms of reference as they currently exist. There are some components of those changes that I don't agree with or I don't support. And so my question is whether, given the conversation around the chamber, is whether, if the time period is not pressing, there's no urgency, can we hold this matter over to a workshop or to further conversation, further discussion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. That's exactly what we're doing. We're taking that out.
Okay.
That's what's been moved.
Yep.
Thank you, Worship. The reason I wanted to be on this panel selection committee is, and as you pointed out, it's simply to recommend to this chamber is that in the past, members of the development panel have been basically assessed based on written recommendations, or not even written recommendations, based on written applications, and on many occasions we'd be all looking around the room. It's very hard sometimes to read a CV and know whether or not the person's appropriate, and if often people would get on it because a member of the chamber just happened to know an individual who was putting their hand up, and we sort of would select them on that basis. Well, if that's the way that we're achieving an outcome, and sometimes we didn't even get that luxury, then if we at least have 3 or 4 members of the council through elected members and members of the staff actually doing a little bit more of a deep dive into each of the members, actually interviewing them and finding out whether they kind of get who we are as people, then I think we're going to get a better outcome. Louis Montegiro, when he was here, he used to talk about, and I've used this many times myself, it's the castles, it's the vibe. The only power we really have now with development is to actually somehow get that vibe into that development panel. And the only way we can do that is by being able to sit down with the panel and explain to them who we are, what that vibe is, what we expect from them, and see basically from the smell of their reaction whether or not they are in alignment with that or not. You can't tell that off a piece of paper. I am hoping that this committee will be able to read the applicants, identify those who are in sync with what we're doing, not just have the qualifications to do the job. That's the easy bit, but actually get the spirit of who we are, get the spirit of what we're looking for. If they could equally sit around this room and have the same conversations that we could and would fit in very much with our mode of thinking, that would be those sort of people that I would like to see on that panel. I don't know most of these panellists. I've never met them. I don't know where they live. I don't know what they drink and eat for breakfast. I have no idea about whether they get who we are as Barossans. I'm not saying they don't. I'm saying I don't know what I don't know. So this is one way that we can actually find the answer. I totally agree with Councillor Priest that in an ideal world we should go back to the way things were, which was the panel was this council was the panel. Councillor Hearn, myself, and Councillor Angus, I think we were on the DAP for about 3 terms, and it was a much better system in my view. We were able to get that direct interaction with the community, and moreover, I think the community preferred it because they expected that the councillors would actually have a say over these issues. That's something that unfortunately the state government has decided, for better or worse, that those political decisions should be taken away from the local politicians. Curious idea, but anyway, we're at their mercy. This is one of the few ways which we can regain some level of control and some level of influence over the DAP, which is why I think it's important that we do this.
Thank you, through the Mayor. So just to clarify with where we sit right now with the progress of this motion, we're appointing the decision-making interviewing panel for next year's DAP for the next 2 years. Is that correct? For their term? And thank you. And also the terms of reference that were originally provided with the reading material here, they're going to be put aside until we workshop that later and discuss the future of councillors being involved in the DAP. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct, Councillor Evans.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say, from somebody that's currently representing on the panel, I feel that if we can consider it from this way, I haven't ever seen, for what it's worth, confidentiality requirements whilst working with the DAP as an issue or a challenge. The team here are fantastic with the executive. I just refer everyone through these guys, and Aaron and Ben at times, and Joe sometimes, and everybody's there to help everybody. We all work together. So, and I suppose with my legal background as a solicitor and barrister working for several years in this actual community, it was just part of the job. You know when to keep your mouth shut, and you do. So I don't see that as a particularly challenging issue, with all due respect, of course, but everybody's different. But I just see the bottom line as local government's role is integral to holding and building community trust. And I think if we're actually physically and emotionally invested in the decision-making process for the panel for our region, it's only a good thing. That's all. Thank you very much.
Just a quick question. Where does the presiding member sit in this scenario, please?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Well, Jake can answer that too. The presiding member is just another independent member who's then appointed. Part of that recruitment process.
That's as I understand it. And I might add that I'm Councillor True.
Okay. Just a question to clarify something, because I actually don't know. Obviously, we're planning for Concordia, and that's a bit separate to all this sort of stuff. When does it all flip over into the assessment panel? Does it ever? Like, I have no idea, like, what the process is with Concordia. When does it flip over? How does it fit into this? Are we supposed to be considering anything about Concordia in this decision, or when we make the decision on the panel? I just don't know, so I'd like it clarified. Thanks.
Question? Leo?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Treat. The very short answer is no. Concordia is a land development. What the panel does, and or the assessment manager, and who's Aaron underneath Mr. Muga, is they assess development. So when we get to a point with Concordia, there will be a development application for a land division, or probably up to 3, and we will assess that. They will build that, and then the next thing that happens is there's developments on the land, and then they're assessed. No different to what happens here with any other block of land. So it's just the process of making decisions about whether the applications are reasonably, and I hate this word, and I can feel Councillor Angus looking at me, are not significantly in variance to the rules. And basically the panel's job is to assess the higher risk, higher order based applications. I'll just hand through to Mr. Mugica, who can, I don't even know the percentage it goes through, but it'll be less than I would have thought, 2-3%, even go to the panel.
Councillor Evans, I'll let you speak once. You've got a question?
I'll be really fast. No question. Just to...
I've got to say, you have spoken, I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Then I'm being consistent.
Just make it a question. You're making a question.
I can rephrase it as a question. I was going to just say a really quick 10-second statement about the panel. Would it be, in your opinion, would it be correct to assume, and I know the answer to this, but I have to just...
You've got a number,
This
you've
is
got 3.
ridiculous. I just wanted to reassure Dave, if in the situation arises, I would be, this is a closed question, if somebody who I currently work with on the panel reapplies to be interviewed for the next panel, as in a planner that wants to be considered for the new application panel, in that case, I would be stepping off and declaring a conflict of interest. That's a very reverse roundabout question way of just clarifying. Don't you think? Would be appropriate. So just to put your mind at rest, Councillor De Vries, that if you think that's... Okay. And that... We'll cross that bridge. Exactly, thank you.
I say, as far as panel members are concerned, there hasn't always been any real bad selections, and there's been some really good ones. Mr. McVicker, who's gone on our panel in the past, so it, yeah.
As you can see, there's plenty of interest in the DAP, and I agree with Councillor De Vries that back in the good old days, remember the Angaston Chambers when we used to thump the council, the desks. Sorry, no, that wasn't me. I'm banging. Sorry, Mayor, I've knocked you off. I mean, I've knocked your sign off. The good old days. They were certainly different. Today, because of Minister Rao in the government, things have changed, unfortunately, and that's where a lot of this, we used to have 3 members on this panel, and now there's Councillor Evans and myself as a proxy. So really what we're doing is, by deleting 1 and 2 today, is that we're allowing a panel to be formed to move ahead with the selection process. to move the process forward, which we have to have completed before the end of December, or prior. Is it Martin? Is it Jake? When's it? Yeah, in December. So that's why we're moving. By taking this out, then it'll give us more time to evaluate the presence of elected members on that panel. So currently, we think it's a pretty good value. It does inhibit us in many areas that we can't allow to speak on issues, and that can be disconcerting, I suppose, if you get the member of the public to ask a question and we've then got to forward it to Jake and his team or whomever. So I just ask that you support this amendment or this motion now with 1 and 2 out, and then we will be bringing it back to the chamber to talk about whether elected members are going to be represented on that particular panel.
That closes the debate. All those in favour? Carried. 7.4.2 is the updated issues paper, Engagement Summary Report 2023, Consultation, Barossa Growth and Infrastructure Investment Strategy, on page 974. Councillor Angus.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move a slightly different motion to that on the screen, but it only requires one word change. Delete the word endorses and substitute the word receives. Because I'm not sure that we do wholeheartedly endorse everything within this report. However, it has been done and it's been presented to us. The least we can do is receive it. And I'll probably do the same with the one further down the track, but that's another matter. So I'll move that.
Is that a question? Is this the time to ask a question? Or does it need to be seconded? I'm happy to second it. Yeah.
Councillor Hearn?
Yeah.
Councillor Angus, do you want to speak to it?
I think I've said enough at the moment. I'll close it if I need to.
Councillor Hearn, do you wish to say?
I just wanted to clarify, because there are the two matters on the agenda, that this item here is specifically referring to a situation that we had where there were a number of additional pieces of feedback that weren't initially incorporated, and this is about bringing them into that report. Is that correct? And the second, everyone's looking at me very blankly all of a sudden. I just wanted to clarify, because part of the problem is that it's lagging with all of the pages and it's going back and forth. So I just want to make sure I'm 100% certain about that.
Yeah, through the Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Greywich. That's correct. This is to
Okay.
pick up those missing submissions last time.
Yeah, and then the next in 2 items' time is the separate piece. I just wanted to be super, super clear about that. Thank you. No. No, sir. No.
That was a terribly framed question. I apologise.
Yeah, I was actually just going to second the motion. I agree with John. I think the word endorse may have... I think in essence we're getting the same outcome, but I think the word endorse sitting there were causing some members of the community a little bit of concern. I actually got a phone call on this. Receives is what we're actually doing, so I think that's fine.
Councillor Barrett.
Yes, along similar lines to Councillor Angus, I was just going to use a different word. I was going to use the word note, but I'm more than happy with what has been put forward.
Councillor Angus, you wish?
No, I think that's enough said. Thank you.
All those in favour? Carried. On page 977 is the Dog and Cat Management Amendment Bill 2024, 977. Any questions?
I'll move the recommendation.
Moved Councillor Angus and seconded Councillor Evans. Either one wish to speak to it?
No thanks.
Any further comment? All those in favour? Carried.
I do have a cat in this one.
And this moves on to 7.4.4. Strategy 2024, the consultation summary on page 1000.
I want to change a bit more than that. I'd like to propose a change, but also ask a question.
I'll let you ask the question.
Yeah. My question is around the wording, because I agree around changing the word from endorse to receive or note or something similar. But my concern is around the balance of the recommendation around authorising the public release of the report in its current format, without any commentary or any other. What I don't want to do is suggest that we bury it. You know, I'm not trying to have like a lack of transparency about the process, but I'm very concerned that if it just simply goes up on the website, that is a form of endorsement. And without any commentary around some concerns that have been raised about the report. So I just wanted to ask that as an initial question, whether there was a possible to amend that motion quite a bit more substantially.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through you, I guess I'm not sure how to answer that because I don't know what you want to amend it to. I think fundamentally all we're doing here is we're releasing back to the community what it's told us. And I think it'd be highly risky to actually amend that. We can make it very, very clear on any communications that there's still a whole pile of work to be done. However, if you want to instruct otherwise, that's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, you're receiving a report and you're issuing it to the community. That's it.
Do I have to ask a question to follow up, or can I make a statement? Yeah. I think that my concern is that I don't believe that the report does accurately reflect what the community has told us. Wouldn't it appear? No, I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm sorry.
And neither am I. At the end of the day, you've got to give us a direction what you want to do.
Yeah. I'm just going to...
I'd like to perhaps add a little bit to the end of that, which would give the public reassure the public that it's an unfinished piece of work, that it is a consultation summary report, it is incomplete, that there is more work to be done on it, but here it is in its current format. It is not endorsed by the council at this stage.
Yeah, good.
And if you can put something like that,
Good thinking, 99.
well, there's a few others that may differ.
I think you've summed it up well. It's bringing together all of it, but it's not actually putting any parameters on any views whatsoever as far as I've...
Well, the point is, don't you think, that being released to the public at the moment, it is actually giving a skewed version of what has been collected from the public. I don't think it's and that's the reason I don't want to endorse it, or I don't want the council to be seen endorsing it as such.
I agree with the endorsement, but it depends on which side of the fence you're sitting on.
I think councillors' words were quite...
Yeah, I do too.
So why don't we just put them in?
And I'm not disputing it. Yeah, I know. I'm falling into the similar trap, aren't I? Okay. You're putting those in.
I will move a motion to that effect, Mayor, if you're happy to accept.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not disputing the fact.
You're moving an amendment, or otherwise I was going to move one, that's all.
Just add those words, what councillor said.
Through you, Mr Mayor, what is the actual recommendation?
What is printed up there, with the addition of
What about something like, for information, noting no policy decisions have been made and further work is to be undertaken?
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to just suggest something along the lines of an explanatory note explaining the context of where this document lands within the process. I think that would be what I think capturing the spirit of what you're saying, Councillor Angus.
Are you seconding this?
Oh, has it not been seconded? Or
No, it hasn't been seconded.
okay, I'm happy to second that.
And then based on that, I've got Councillor Angus as the mover.
Oh, sorry.
Jane?
Through the Mayor. Would you like Councillor Angus first?
Okay, well,
I'm doing a courtesy to John.
thank you. Look, I'll officially move that, and I think we all know the reasons that I don't want to adopt it or anything other than receive it. I think it does have some shortcomings as a document, and I don't want the public to be under the impression that we are supportive wholeheartedly. There's a lot in it that probably we can support, but I'd suggest there are things in there that people would be raising their eyebrows over, and we need to be able to explain ourselves if we need to. So,
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, even the original document, original recommendation, I was okay with, but I do like this wording because it gives a better understanding to the community of what our intent is. Ultimately, anytime we get a report, it doesn't exist until this council actually says this report exists, which is why we receive it. But once we receive it, we need to let the community know, okay, we've received this, it exists, what do you think? And we are trying to be as transparent as we can with this. I've never seen anything that this council's undertaken gone through this level of consultation, so I'm feeling very comfortable that the community having repeated opportunities to give their feedback. When this is available for people to see, knowing that we have recognised that we have reached this next step, then if we get further feedback, which I'm absolutely certain we will, then at least they know the process has been followed properly, which is as it should be. I think I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. Just a quick question about the timing of the public release of this document. So is it correct in saying this needs to be released now? It has to be. Because I wasn't able to attend the last workshop, so I do apologise if that was canvassed in great detail, but that's my understanding. It needs to go out as an unfinished document as such, as has been stated in the chambers right now, that it needs, or unfinished might be the incorrect terms, but as other colleagues have said, with a bit further amendments to be done and further work to be done on the document with the results. Is that correct or not?
Well, again, the answer to that is up to you. There's no legislative requirement. I would have thought there is a moral contract with the people that have actually made a submission to give that information back to them. The absolute reality is it's already been released to the public in the agenda. So I think ultimately we're having a debate about nothing.
Yeah. So you
we're
would
fundamentally having a debate about nothing.
Yeah. So like a position statement or something, and then do further work and then release it down the track when everyone's super happy with it. It's already out there.
Which is exactly what the report says.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I feel like can I ask, do I have to ask a question? Can I make a statement? Okay, great. I can debate. Okay, well, I'm going to say something that can be debated back at me, and I'm going to try and make the point very succinctly, but this is the issue that people come to me on, and I really wanted to just take a moment to just make a particular point, which is that this has been an entirely self-directed process. The state government has not required us to go through this process. There is no broader legislative requirement for us to do this. The Barossa Council has self-directed to undertake this process. And I feel really compelled to say that what we are talking about here is not just a report or a survey response, but we are talking about something that fits into a broader idea of the next 100, 150 years. These are big picture decisions that are being made. And I fundamentally believe that you cannot make good decisions on the back of a process that is not... I had the word flawed written here, and I don't want that to be a judgment, but I feel very, very strongly that there must be integrity in a process in order to have confidence in the outcome. And what we learnt in the workshop last fortnight was that there has been a breakdown between the design of the survey, the questions that were asked, and then the manner in which URPS were asked to try and quantify that data. And Zoe, forgive me, I can't remember her last name. So it was very clear that that was what has resulted in this idea of having, essentially trying to shoehorn open-ended narrative questions into pie charts and percentages. So what that leads me to then say is I put that report to one side because it doesn't accurately reflect the complexity of the data. And if one puts the report to one side, then what one is left with is like 2,500 pages worth of feedback from our community. And I have read those pages, and to my mind, there is simply not a broad-based support for growth in the region in the manner in which this report reflects. And the fact that other members in the chamber or other people would have a different opinion having read that same data actually illustrates the exact problem, is that there is not a clear, concise outcome from that data. The idea that it's being a self-directed exercise, we are not under external pressure, there is not some requirement for us to do this. Our staff are under enormous time pressures. I know that everyone in this chamber also has jobs and commitments as well. I feel like we are creating artificial haste and urgency around an issue that doesn't require it, but does require very considered, thoughtful consideration. So I just feel very strongly that we're kind of rushing through something here. There isn't a time deadline for us to get this up onto the website. And I feel that we need to be very mindful about the way that it is presented. And that's all I wanted to say.
I can't see any problem why this can't go out for public release, as we've made some amendments to that initial motion. But I think that the CEO at that workshop that majority of us attended, the CEO gave quite a good answer to Councillor Greatwich's not liking of that report from those people. Now, perhaps the CEO, if you remember what you said, you could repeat what you said in the questions that Councillor Greatwich asked at that function 2 weeks ago, and you gave a good response to that as to...
We were talking about the height of three-storey buildings or two. I think we're getting into the detail of the... We didn't have to get into the detail then and there. It would be coming back to the chamber. Hang on.
So you can't remember? No. But it was a good answer. Okay, no, that's all right. No problem. I can't see why this can't go ahead.
I did have one final question, which was that in the workshop 2 weeks ago, some of the concerns that I raised with the report were around, for example, in the blue breakout boxes where there was a percentage, 78% of respondents either agree or support or partially support. And I do believe that that is an inaccurate reflection, and the email that I sent around to the elected members set that out. I also raised some points with URPS around narrative language or leading language, and I felt that URPS sort of either conceded those points or agreed that we do need to be very careful with the language that we use in this report. So my question is whether those amendments, having acknowledged that there are some deficiencies in there in the way that the data is presented, because the report that is here still has those blue breakout boxes with those percentages in there, and I'm absolutely loath to accept that that is the best way that we can present this information. So is it the case that we can ask URPS to make those edits and changes to reflect those concerns, remove those inaccurate leading statements, and just provide some more careful language around some of the narrative that's being created in the commentary? I would be much more comfortable with that than present just this as it currently stands going on the website.
I'm inclined to think that Councillor Angus has more or less highlighted the fact there's further work to be done. I hear what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying, but I think it's just a body of work, and to me there's a lot more work that has to be. I agree with you. This is the most important document that we've sort of going to do. Absolutely essential to get it right. But I hearken back probably 6 months or so ago when there was a lot of uncertainty about what was going to even go out in the first instance. And I clearly remember the CEO, well, if you're not happy, stop it now. And we went ahead. This is a result of it. And I think to get that message out that this is just a collation of people's views. And it needs a lot of work to really tease it out. And there's some good stuff in it. There's not some good stuff in it. But I think we're probably getting too far down the track until we can gel through all of that and go to the next step. And the next step is beyond my limited planning abilities. So what's the next step? Jake.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the plan at this stage will be to bring URPS back to the September workshop, to have another 2 hours to distill the information and work out what's going to go in or come out of the growth strategy. So, it's my opinion that that's the important part, and I think it was mentioned with the BAP decision earlier. If elected members have a vibe or a feel in terms of the feedback received, that will need to be considered and worked throughout that workshop before we finalise the document, rather than taking on perhaps face value whether there's issues with how the data's been presented or not.
Councillor De Vries.
I have a series of questions, and these are actually legitimate questions. This is to the CEO. If we were not to receive this report, what would be the practical effect of that?
Yes, CEO.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor De Vries, the practical effect of that is probably fairly minimal, other than because fundamentally we have already released it.
No, but no, if we don't receive it, in effect we're rejecting it, saying we do not accept this.
No, we're not doing anything. It's just a report.
So would that mean that they would then go back and redraft, or would it just mean it would sit in limbo?
No, because we're going to come back to you and work through this for how many ever workshops yet.
So in effect we have to receive it whether we like it or not.
Well, receiving does nothing anyhow. It's exactly what. Correct.
Because
at least
receiving, as I understand it, receiving simply means we acknowledge that they have completed the work that we set them to do for this particular part of the task.
To which you as seconder have further clarified that there's no decisions made and there's lots more work to do.
Correct. And in regards to authorising its public release, as I understand it, that simply means we make it available to the community so that those people who hear about this and say, what the hell are they doing? Where can I read this so I can find out? That the information is freely available rather than hidden in such a way that they would have to use an FOI to get that information.
In as best a digestible way we can put 3,500 pages up.
Right.
Correct.
So by doing this, this is the most transparent way that we can ensure that the community knows what the process is, and if there are flaws within it, and if they disagree with some of the elements within it, this is the best way within which we can get them to be able to A, understand that information, and B, respond.
Again, Mr Mayor, it is a methodology to put it available, and we'll make the community aware of its availability.
Right. Thank you.
Every single part of this process is important, and I think that if you get into a situation where you say this is not as important, there's a big important bit, it is all important, and if you discount some aspects of it, then you end up discounting the overall integrity of the process. I want to I think that it is reasonable to ask that anything that we put on our website, there is a tactic endorsement of that, even if there's a weasel word about whether we've received it or noted it or endorsed it, it's going on the Barossa Council website. And I think it's appropriate to require that we have basic edits made so that the data is accurate. We cannot publish it in its current format. Well, my question is, can we please go back to URPS and just ask that they make edits so that this meets fundamental standards of accuracy? I cannot support something that says 78% of people either support or partially support when that is just factually, fundamentally incorrect.
And that's your option not to support it. I guess the thing that I see here is that there's already been comments made that people are ringing you already, so it's already out there. So, and it's now giving an opportunity for everybody to have a look at it, so it's there. So I don't really see much in the documents. It's really just what people have come in and said. I get your point. Now I'm debating. I'll stop. I'm going to pull myself up. Let's stay with the issue. Yeah, I think we've gone around far enough. Councillor Anderson, I'm going to close the councillor.
Yeah, I was just going to. Sorry.
Sorry.
I was going to say in answer to Councillor Greatwich's comments, I believe that that's a work in progress, and it wouldn't matter how we tweaked it, there'd be somebody else that would come up with a different comment. So I think we could move forward with this, knowing that we're going to revamp it at a workshop sometime in the future.
Thank you. We have no option but to receive this document. It's part and parcel of engaging these consultants. They're going to do something for the amount of money we pay them, and we acknowledge it by saying formally, yes, we've received the document. We don't have to endorse it. So I think the motion there is sound. I still believe it's a work in progress. I welcome them back to our workshop in September. What I'd suggest though is that maybe we suggest to URPS that they don't furnish us with 2,500 pages of submissions, that they start to whittle it back to the guts of what's been collected. We don't need to see 500 pages of the same submission with a different name. Maybe they could summarise that in some sort of a graph or a chart or something or other. And well, it's the commentary that is misleading, and I think that can be followed up. I'd urge you to just let's move on, receive it, put it out into the public domain. We're not making any decisions on it. The sun will come up tomorrow, don't worry.
That closes the debate. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. 7.4.5 is on page 1032 is the Gawler Growth Strategy draft submission. Any questions?
That's framework,
Are we doing farm work or framework? I don't mind which. It's in the recommendation.
Yes, I reckon.
Gotta love that spell check.
I can do that for you.
Any questions?
You buying a farm, Janine?
Wasn't me.
Someone would like to put the motion? Councillor Priest, and seconded.
Do you want to receive it or endorse it?
No, I think we'll endorse it. I'm happy to second it.
And seconded Councillor Angus. Either one wish to speak to it?
Enough's been said.
No, I'm right.
Any further comment? All those in favour? Carried. Councillors, that concludes our August meeting. Our next scheduled meeting is on the 17th of September 2024 at 5:30.